into the intention experiment because I've talked this weekend mostly, and we've both discussed and worked with you on living with intention. But what we're trying to do as well is to demonstrate that there actually is a science to intention, and that intention works on a mass scale. And that's the whole idea of the intention experiment, to actually test that. How far can we go? How far do our thoughts matter in terms of changing the world? So I don't know if you're aware of this, but the intention experiment is a living book. So it's not only a book about the science of intention, but it's also an ongoing experiment in which I involve the readers in what is the biggest mind over matter experiment in history. We have been running a number of experiments. We've started with just a little leaf in a group in London in 2007, March 2007. And we had an audience, a bit bigger than this, about 400 people. And I asked them to send intention to one of two leaves that were in Arizona. We've been working with the University of Arizona. Dr. Gary Schwartz the noted psychologist, has generously given his time, as have a number of other noted scientists. And he has his special camera equipment that I showed you yesterday. We sent intention to make the leaf glow. He didn't know which leaf we sent it to. He then put both leaves under his special equipment and found that the leaf sent intention was truly glowing. And he said to me, called me up after I unblinded the study, because as I said, he took those measurements before he knew which leaf we'd sent intention to. And he was very excited. He calls me up and he says, Lynn, you won't believe it. This leaf is glowing so much that the other one is darker than usual. It's almost been neglected. So we were encouraged by that. And we went to a series of germination intention experiments. We wanted to see if we could make plants grow faster with our thoughts. This time, we had 4 sets of things being experimented on, 4 sets of 30 seeds. And I decided to run the first experiment in Sydney, Australia. The 4 sets of seeds, meanwhile, were sitting back in the Tucson, Arizona lab. I had the audience choose one of the 4 sets of seeds. Once again, the scientists didn't know which ones we sent. We sent intention for them to grow faster and grow a certain number of centimeters by a certain number of days. The scientists, when we were done, planted all 4 sets of seeds. And lo and behold, the one sent intention grew significantly higher. So then everywhere I went, I started running this experiment. I ran it with a group of 100 in Rhinebeck, New York, sending intention to in Arizona. I ran it from Hilton Head, South Carolina. I ran it from Austin, Texas. I ran it over the internet with thousands of people from many countries around the globe. And in each instance, we had a significant effect. The plants grew faster. Those little seeds in Arizona were affected by people sending intention from thousands of miles away. So then we moved on to water. And we just sent love to water, a kind of an Emoto experiment, this time working with the physicist, Dr. Konstantin Korotkov, sending love to see if we could change anything in its photonic emissions, because water, as well as living things, has light emissions. And we found that we had an effect. So we moved on to trying to change its cluster structure, because water clusters together. The molecules of water cluster together like the rooms of a house. And there are little weak bonds that occur between these molecules. Up to 100 molecules can cluster together in a very strange formation. And the scientists believe that these can be changed by subtle mechanisms, electromagnetic fields, but also intention. And that changing that cluster structure may change water from ordinary water to healing water. So we've tried that. Our first intention experiment was run with Penn State University with water. And we've come up with a result they can't figure out how to quantify. We did something to the water, but they're not sure what. They have to go back and get more sensitive equipment. So they're doing that. We're doing the water experiment again. But of course, the implications of the water experiment are enormous. Look at the globe and how much water there is. You yourself are a giant water vessel, as we talked about. You yourself are also a tape recorder. Remember, we talked about the fact that water magnifies the signal. So if we can change water, we can change so many things in the world. We're working in the future on a bacteria experiment with water, in trying to mutate bad bacteria to good bacteria. If we can affect that, we might be able to affect polluted water. We have a number of other experiments I'll talk to you about in a moment that I'd like you to join me in. But I also want to talk to you about the power of the group, because somebody said to me, you know, well, what about, people are sending me negative intention and I still don't know how to really ward that off. So I want to tell you a little bit of a story that happened to me in Austin, Texas. I was talking in front of a group, and there was a woman who was very agitated, obviously wasn't enjoying herself in this workshop, very similar to this. So she came up to me and started really criticizing it. And she finally just turned to me and said, "You're a joke." And I went, "Ooh," you know, the force of her anger really knocked me back. So I just realized that she was being very disruptive. So I did what I usually don't do, and I said, "I'm sorry, you're going to have to leave." And I was so upset by the whole experience that I started to tear up. And all of a sudden, out from the audience, everybody came up one by one and created a giant donut around me. And by the time they'd finished, there were 4 or 5 people deep, just holding hands around me. It was like a power hug. And it was one of the strongest experiences I've ever had, besides meeting Brian, I think. But it was such a powerful antidote to negative intention. It's another reason why we want to create these little groups. Whenever you feel beset and overwhelmed by life's tough road, you know you've got a group here to engage in a group hug. I also want to tell you something else about negative intention. You know, somebody was talking to me, a philosopher actually, and saying that oftentimes the reason we fight back when somebody criticizes us is that we're not sure of ourselves. You know, she said, imagine going into your doctor's office and him saying, "I'm sorry to tell you this, Mrs. Hubbard, but you're actually a rabbit." Well, I would just laugh at that. I wouldn't say anything to it. I would just say, "Yeah, right." And that's because of the certainty I know that I'm a woman. And this is the same kind of certainty we have to bring to things in knowing who we are, that divine purpose. Once you really know who you are, no matter what anybody throws at you, they probably can't knock you back. So these are our intention experiments. We're planning and creating a little Gaia-sphere. It's a little glass terrarium, like a mini world, working with the University of Arizona. And we're going to fill it with primitive animals and plants and see if we can affect the temperature or the CO2 levels with our thoughts. And if we can, that will have enormous significance and potential to cure ecological problems. We're going to do that pollution experiment I talked to you about. We're also creating, and this has happened almost despite myself, it's kind of turned into a live aid of intention experiments. We're running a series of peace intention experiments, attempting to lower violence in hotspots around the world. I mentioned this to Deepak Chopra when I was on his radio show, and he immediately said he would like the Alliance for New Humanity to be involved. I mentioned it to the Association of Global New Thought, and she said, I'm going to get entire churches to be involved, and let's run it on September 14th, our first one, because it's right after 9/11, and it'll be a wonderful antidote to those memories and those photographs that keep showing up on the anniversary. So we're going to be running it with entire New Thought churches on September 14th, so please write down that date. And we're running, then the Unity churches got involved, and then the Spiritual Cinema Circle got involved, and Gaiam, and before long, we have the potential of hundreds of thousands of people being involved with this intention experiment. So please write down this date and please check our website and join in on these intention experiments. All it requires is 10 minutes of your time to do something that may change the world. The other thing you can do is go away with your own intention experiments. One of the ones that we talk about is to try to do something that never happens in your life. So if you're a woman and your husband never brings you flowers, you know how I said don't try to do anything coercive? Well, this is the exception to the rule. So send an intention to have him send you flowers, and if it changes, if something happens, you'll know your intentions had an effect. Or if you're a man and you love football and your woman can't stand it, send an intention for her to come and sit down and watch the Arsenal game with you and see what happens. Or if your kids never make their beds, as ours never do, send an intention, we're still working on that one, to have them make their beds. I had a woman tell me about this in London. We've had several do the flower thing and have really amazing results. And this one woman in England, garden center with my husband, he never buys me flowers. And I was so overwhelmed by all those beautiful flowers that I sent an intention to him to do this. We were standing in line to pay, and all of a sudden he rushed away, and he came back with this giant pot of gardenias, and he said, I just had this, it was almost like a mental order. I just had to go out and use flowers. If you do this, report on our website, please. Tell everybody what's happened. We wanted to show you our masters of intention. You know about Ollie. Whenever Ollie wants a walk, he gets it. He sends this psychic message to Brian, and Brian all of a sudden picks up the lead. And this is our daughter, Anya. And Anya, what Anya wants, Anya often gets. We found this lately. She's lost her iPod. So being good parents, we've said, no, you have to save up your money and buy your own. So she's now working us. She called us up when we were in Chicago and said, while you're there, do you think you could pick up an iPod for us? And we said, no, we're, you're going to have to save up. So she's been taking to leaving pictures of us, of iPods, by our bed every night, seeing if that might do it, leaving a little trail of pictures, or calling us up and saying, you know, that iPod I saw, I don't want it anymore. She's even trying reverse psychology. So I know this is a master of intention in the making. Before we leave you, we want to just let you know that we have discussion groups. We've started on our website, Living the Field, livingthefield.com, tools for a new world. And we're starting discussion groups. We have things like Children in the Field. So we invite you to be part of those discussion groups. We offer free downloads that people can have to spark the discussion, but we also ask everybody in a community to share some of their information about trying to create a new world together. We have weekly e-news, and you're welcome to sign on for either Living the Field news or the Intention Experiment. So it's livingthefield.com or theintentionexperiment.com. I'll have the websites up in a minute, don't worry. And you get e-news from us. And also, those are e-news, both of those are written by me every week. And don't forget What Doctors Don't Tell You for weekly information about health. And that one is written by Brian. He's very funny. People love just laughing about medicine, etc. with him. So please look at our other website too. And don't forget to come back to our Intention Experiment site after this weekend. We'll notify you, but your group will be up there and you can continue the journey. So I want to leave you with this little story about this bear who came over the mountain. As you can see, this is a polar bear who just wandered into Canada's Hudson Bay one day. And Norbert Rosling is a photographer, and he was there with a bunch of husky dogs. And he was suddenly alarmed when he saw this polar bear because he figured, oh my goodness, my huskies are lunch for this bear. So he was terrified. He thought, there they go, eat or be eaten. But he was astonished because the bear just wanted to play. And the bear came around at the end of the day at dusk just to play with those dogs. And he ended up coming back night after night to play with those dogs. So maybe one good thought is all it takes to change the world. Thank you very much.